I'm really happy because ProctorExam has just received the Security Verified certification. That's a certification that attests that ProctorExam has got all the procedures and policies in place to take a good care of security within the organization. So security of the data, security of our assets, and security of our processes. It's a little bit similar to ISO certification. Maybe you've heard of ISO. ISO's 27001. It's a big framework for security, which a lot of corporate organizations have. And Security Verified is actually like a lightweight version of ISO. And what I personally like about Security Verified is that because it's lightweight, it's also very pragmatic. So it's very easy to apply in a smaller organization. It's also much more geared towards fitting with your daily processes. So instead of creating new processes, it's more looking at your current processes and making sure that you apply security common sense procedures to your current processes. So you don't need to change everything. And usually when you change, it's more difficult to then keep the good practices than if you actually don't change too much in your processes, because it's much more easy to apply good security practices when it makes sense and when it works with your current processes. We did this Security Verified certification as part of a few months of workshops and learning. And personally, I learned a lot during that period. But what I also saw is that a lot of the stuff that you need to get certified, and also a lot of the questions that were asked by the auditors that checked that we actually comply with these processes, we already had in place this ProctorExam. And I think that is because ProctorExam is a company that from the very beginning has been looking at data and how we handle data as a core of the business. ProctorExam gathers data, and some of that data is pretty sensitive. So when you're a test taker or you're a student, we record your webcam during the exam, or we record your screen share, but we might also record a mobile phone while you're taking the exam. And that could be in a very private situation. It could be in your own home. So we know that that data is very sensitive, that that data is very private, and that it's not supposed to be used in any other way than to assert the integrity of the exam that you're taking. So, ProctorExam has always taken the view that we obviously use the data only for the purpose that it serves. So basically, we only use the data for certifying that an exam was taken with integrity, and also protects your data so that when that exam has been taken and we've attested that the exam has been taken without cheating, the data can be deleted. So it won't be used for any other purpose than that. So as part of that certification for Security Verified, we also performed risk analysis. And during that risk analysis, what is it? You actually look at all your data. Where do you collect data? All your systems, all your assets, and you look where are there possible risks involved? Where could something happen that compromises the data or that compromises security? And we identify, I think, around 46 risks, and and what was good to see is that a lot of those risks we had already addressed in our current processes, and some new risks we looked at, and we took steps and measures to reduce the risks or to reduce the impact of a risk. So those are two things you can do. For example, one of the things you look at is the office. Is it possible for people to leave papers with sensitive data that are lying on the desk, and that to prying eyes of people who should not be looking at them? Well, as an online organization, As you can imagine, we haven't been at the office that much lately. So yeah, no big risk there. But another thing that you look at is software. I'm responsible for the software at ProctorExam. So it's very important that all the processes we use for developing software, but also the software that we create, doesn't contain vulnerabilities. And you may be aware that a lot of the software being developed nowadays is being developed using also third-party software. So we use open source packages instead of rewriting everything ourselves. And a lot of these open source packages obviously also checked for security vulnerabilities very regularly. But it's very important in your processes that you make sure that you first know the source of the software that you use, if it's a third-party software, but also always check that it hasn't been tampered with, that there isn't a security flaw that has been introduced before you. What I found out also during that process is that as a team, software development team, all our engineers are actually already very well aware of these risks. And we already had a lot of processes in place to address this and to make sure that we are well aware of the risk with third-party software, but also about the procedures to follow in order to mitigate those risks. Now, the security is not just about vulnerabilities in your software. It's a lot about vulnerabilities in people, actually. So you're probably well aware that the biggest data breaches are not because somebody was able to hack into a database. It's usually because somebody has been able to find out the password of somebody that has access to that database. So basically, it's really about hacking a person that has maybe a weak password, or by enticing them to click on the link and then enter a password. Those are the biggest data breaches. And so, yeah, as part of security, I think the most important thing is to educate people about security. And that's also part of the process that we have set up, and that is educating all the employees about security, about the risks of phishing, the risks of weak passwords, and all those kind of aspects. So we now follow regular trainings, and I think everybody also, that's also the nice part of security, is that you learn a lot because you do get new trainings. And it's also important as part of ProctorExam, because we're an organization that actually combines technology, but also the human aspect. If you take an exam, it's being proctored by someone. There's a human in the loop who's gonna, in the end, decide whether there was a breach or not, or whether the exam was taken with integrity or not. And that's really at the core of ProctorExam. And that's also really what I like about ProctorExam and the challenge of creating software that can help people to actually provide services to the customers. So in the end, it's a human interaction. It's a human that is talking to the customer. It's a human that is explaining to the customer what's happening, but also it's a human. It's a human process, and I think that's the most important aspect also of security, and that is transparency. So an information security policy helps an organization to be transparent about what are the processes and what do we do with your data, how do we handle it, and what do we do to make sure that your data is safe in our hands. And so I would, as part of that, I would encourage you to ask any questions that you have, and we will be very glad to answer them.